You know you're about to get screwed when the CEO's daughter stands up in the middle of your Series C presentation and says, "Dad, I think Michael's being way too conservative with our growth projections." 12 institutional investors on the Zoom call. Patricia Goldman from Sequoia Capital had flown down from San Francisco specifically for this. We're talking about a $120 million round to scale our enterprise AI platform, and Ashley Price, all 29 years old with 6 months at the company, decides this is her moment to shine. I'm Michael Torres, 48, former Marine-turned-tech founder. Built Apex Dynamics here in Austin over the past 8 years after my last startup got acquired. We'd grown from 0 to $18 million in annual recurring revenue, and this Series C was supposed to be our rocket fuel to $100 million. Ashley, I said, keeping my voice steady. Let's finish the operational metrics first, then we can discuss growth scenarios. But she wasn't backing down. She'd been doing this for 6 months now, questioning every decision, sitting in on engineering meetings where she didn't belong, sending strategy memos that read like MBA case studies. Her dad, Richard Palmer, wasn't just our board chair, he was also our lead angel investor from 8 years ago when I was bootstrapping this thing in my garage. Actually, Ashley continued, I've been working on some alternative projections that show we could hit $200 million ARR within 18 months if we pivot our enterprise focus. The silence on the call was deafening. You could practically hear laptops closing in offices across the country. Patricia Goldman's face went stone cold. She'd done her due diligence on our business model for 3 months. Our conservative projections weren't conservative. They were realistic based on enterprise sales cycles and market penetration. Ashley, Patricia said, her voice carrying that edge you get when someone's wasting serious money's time, these numbers weren't in the materials we reviewed. That's because Michael's team has been resistant to innovative thinking, Ashley replied. I had to develop them independently. I felt something cold settle in my gut. This wasn't just about the presentation anymore. Ashley was making a power play, right here, right now, with 12 of the most connected investors in Texas watching. See, here's what Ashley didn't understand about enterprise software. You don't just flip a switch and double your growth rate because some fresh MBA thinks you should. Enterprise customers take 12 to 18 months to close. They want references, proof of concept, security audits. The kind of methodical growth we'd been building wasn't sexy, but it was bulletproof. Richard, I said, looking directly at him on screen, maybe we should table the strategic discussion for our next board meeting and focus on the current round. Richard Palmer looked uncomfortable as hell. He'd been squirming since Ashley opened her mouth, like he knew this train wreck was coming but hoped it would somehow derail itself before impact. Michael's right, he said finally. Let's stick to the prepared deck. But Ashley wasn't done. Dad, we talked about this. The board voted to explore new growth strategies. That's when I knew she'd just stepped on a landmine. Excuse me, said Carlos Martinez, unmuting from his square. Carlos runs a family office in Dallas now, but we served together in Iraq 20 years ago. He doesn't tolerate bullshit from anyone, especially not entitled kids with trust funds. What board vote are you referring to? Ashley's confidence flickered for just a second. It was an informal discussion. Board decisions aren't informal, Patricia cut in. They're documented, voted on, and recorded. Michael, were you part of this discussion? News to me, I said. The temperature in the virtual room dropped about 10 degrees. I could see other investors shifting in their chairs, checking their phones, probably wondering what kind of amateur hour operation they'd stumbled into. Ashley doubled down. This is exactly the kind of inflexibility that's holding us back. Michael built a solid foundation, but we need visionary leadership for the next phase. Visionary leadership, right? Because 6 months of MBA theory trumps 20 years of actually building and selling enterprise software. Ashley, I said, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but maybe we should let our current results speak for themselves. Current results that could be 3x better with the right strategy, she shot back. That's when Patricia Goldman did something that made my blood run cold. She shared her screen. I'm looking at the board composition documents from your Series A, she said. Ashley, what's your official title at Apex Dynamics? VP of Strategy and Business Development. And when were you appointed to the board of directors? Silence. The kind of silence that echoes. I'm not technically on the board, Ashley said, but as VP of Strategy. So you're making strategic pronouncements about a company's direction without board authority during a funding presentation, contradicting the founder's prepared materials. When Patricia Goldman puts it like that, it sounds even worse than it was. I was trying to provide additional perspective, Ashley said, her voice getting smaller. The perspective we need, Carlos said, is from the people who actually built this company. Michael, why don't you finish your presentation? I clicked to the next slide. Financial projections. Conservative but achievable. Customer acquisition costs trending down. Net revenue retention at 115%. The kind of boring, reliable metrics that make investors write big checks. But the damage was done. You could feel it in the digital air. Confusion, concern, questions about our internal dynamics. Ashley had just poisoned our Series C presentation with 12 of the most important investors in Texas watching. I finished the presentation on autopilot. Customer metrics, growth projections, competitive analysis. The kind of numbers I could recite in my sleep after 8 years of building this business. But you could feel the energy had shifted. Questions came in clipped professional tones. No one asked about follow-up meetings or due diligence timelines. Thank you, Michael, Patricia said when I wrapped up. We'll need some time to discuss internally and get back to you. The call ended. 12 black squares disappeared like someone had just flipped off the lights on our future. I sat in my home office staring at a blank screen. My phone started buzzing within minutes. Carlos texted first. What the hell was that about? Sarah Thompson from Austin Ventures called. Michael, we need to understand the management dynamics here. But the call that mattered came from Patricia Goldman 30 minutes later. Michael, she said, I've been doing venture capital for 18 years. I've seen founders get pushed out, boards go sideways, and family businesses implode. But I've never seen someone torpedo a funding presentation from the inside. Ashley's young, I said. She doesn't understand how enterprise sales actually work. That's Richard's problem to solve. Our problem is that Sequoia just watched your company's internal dynamics fall apart during our final due diligence. We can't fund a business where the leadership team is fighting in public. My stomach dropped. So the Series C is dead? Not necessarily. But we need clarity on governance and management structure. If you're running operations with clear board backing, we'll reconsider. If this is going to be ongoing family drama, we'll pass. That evening, I drove out to Treaty Oak Distilling. It's a local Austin spot where Richard and I sometimes grab drinks after board meetings. I found him at the bar nursing a whiskey and looking like he'd aged 10 years in one day. Hell of a presentation, I said, taking the stool next to him. He didn't look up. She's my daughter, Michael. I know. And she's about to destroy everything we've built if someone doesn't teach her how business actually works. Richard finally met my eyes. She graduated top 10% from Wharton. Summa cum laude undergrad from UT. She's not stupid. Never said she was stupid. But being smart in school and understanding enterprise software sales are two completely different things. The bartender refilled Richard's glass without being asked. That's never a good sign. Ashley thinks you've been freezing her out of strategic decisions, Richard said, because she's been here 6 months and wants to redesign our entire go-to-market strategy. You know how long it took us to build relationships with our current enterprise customers? Years. Ashley wants to throw that away and chase Fortune 10 accounts we have no business pursuing yet. Maybe she has a point about thinking bigger. I turned to face him directly. Richard, you've been investing in Austin tech companies for 15 years. When have you ever seen a Series C get derailed by internal politics during the presentation? He was quiet for a long time. What do you want, Michael? I want operational control over the business I built. Ashley can keep learning, but she needs to understand there's a hierarchy here, and I want protection so this can't happen again. Protection? Board resolution that any major strategic decisions require founder approval. Ashley can provide input, but she doesn't get to override 8 years of market knowledge with PowerPoint slides. Richard signaled for another whiskey. I was starting to worry about how many he'd had before I arrived. She won't like it, he said. She doesn't have to like it. This is business, not family therapy. Patricia made it clear. The money follows stable management. Right now, that's me. The next morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Patricia Goldman. Michael, I've been thinking about yesterday. Can you walk me through your Series A documents? Specifically any founder protections or management clauses? I was already pulling up the files on my laptop. What are you looking for? Standard founder protections, vesting acceleration, approval rights for management changes, that kind of thing. Here's where 8 years ago, paranoid Michael had done something smart. After getting pushed out of my previous startup right before the exit, I'd learned about founder protection clauses the hard way. When we drafted the Apex Series A documents, I made sure I was protected. Section 4.7 of the Investor Rights Agreement, I said. Any change in my role as founder and CTO requires written approval from holders of 75% of outstanding preferred shares. And Ashley's role? She's an employee, VP level, but no special protections. Interesting. So theoretically, if the board wanted to clarify management structure, they could absolutely restructure Ashley's role without my consent, but they couldn't touch mine without a supermajority of investors agreeing. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Michael, I'm scheduling a board call for Friday, all directors plus Sequoia as lead investor. We need to resolve this before anyone else gets cold feet. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Ashley Price just reminded everyone why founder protections exist in the first place. That Friday board call was going to be interesting, because Ashley had made one critical mistake during her little presentation stunt. She'd forgotten that this wasn't just Richard's company anymore. We had institutional investors with fiduciary responsibilities, and those investors had just watched her try to hijack their potential investment. Game on. Friday's board call started at 2 p.m. sharp. Patricia had sent the agenda 24 hours in advance. Management structure and Series C continuation. Translation: fix this mess or lose the money. I dialed in from my home office. Richard joined from Apex headquarters. Ashley was there too. She'd somehow convinced her dad she needed to be included for strategic input. The other board members logged in one by one. Carlos Martinez from Dallas, Sarah Thompson from Austin Ventures, and Dr. James Wilson, our independent director who'd been with us since Series A. Patricia opened with her typical no-nonsense approach. We're here because Wednesday's presentation raised concerns about management alignment and decision-making authority. Before Sequoia commits 180 Mwadim, we need clarity. I appreciate everyone's time, Richard said. He looked tired. Probably hadn't slept much since our conversation at Treaty Oak. Ashley has some thoughts on strategic direction that she'd like to share. Here we go again. Ashley launched into a 15-minute presentation about market expansion opportunities and leveraging AI capabilities for Fortune 10 penetration. Same MBA buzzword soup from Wednesday, just repackaged with prettier slides. She talked about pivoting our enterprise focus, accelerating customer acquisition, and disrupting traditional software sales cycles. Dr. Wilson stopped her mid-sentence. Ashley, help me understand something. What's your background in enterprise software sales? I have an MBA from Wharton with a focus on technology strategy. That's not what I asked. Have you ever sold enterprise software? Ashley's confidence flickered. Not directly, but I've studied the market dynamics. Michael, Dr. Wilson continued, how long did your last enterprise deal take to close? 18 months. 2.3 NM annual contract with a healthcare system. Took 47 meetings, 3 RFPs, and a security audit that lasted 6 months. And Ashley wants to accelerate this process. How exactly? Ashley tried to recover. There are innovative approaches to enterprise sales. Companies like Slack and Zoom disrupted traditional cycles. Those are collaboration tools, Carlos cut in. We're selling AI infrastructure that processes regulated data. The compliance requirements alone take months to navigate. I watched Ashley's presentation fall apart in real time. Every suggestion she made showed how little she understood our actual business. She wanted to eliminate our channel partner program, the same program that generated 40% of our revenue. She proposed direct sales to Fortune 10 companies we had no relationship with. She suggested cutting our 18-month implementation timeline to 6 months, which would guarantee customer failures. Patricia let her finish, then shared her screen. I'm looking at Apex's customer retention data. 98% renewal rate, average contract value growing 35% year over year. Michael, what drives these metrics? Methodical implementation, extensive customer success support, and realistic timeline expectations. We underpromise and overdeliver. And Ashley's proposed changes would impact this how? The silence stretched out like a wire about to snap. Ashley finally spoke up. Sometimes you have to take calculated risks to achieve breakthrough growth. With other people's money, Patricia said flatly. Dr. Wilson cleared his throat. I'd like to address the governance issue directly. Ashley, what authority do you have to make strategic decisions for this company? I'm VP of Strategy. That's a job title, not board authority. Richard, can you clarify Ashley's role in corporate decision-making? Richard looked like he wanted to crawl under his desk. Ashley provides strategic input as part of the executive team. But she doesn't have voting rights or operational authority, Patricia said. Correct? Correct. Carlos unmuted. Then why are we having this conversation? Michael's the founder and CTO. He's built a profitable, growing business with strong customer metrics. Ashley's been here 6 months and wants to redesign everything. This isn't complicated. Ashley's face was turning red. This is exactly the kind of old-school thinking that prevents companies from scaling. You're also focused on incremental growth that you can't see the bigger opportunity. The bigger opportunity, Dr. Wilson said, is not screwing up a business that's already working. Ashley, with all due respect, your suggestions would destroy everything Michael's built. That's when Ashley made her biggest mistake. Maybe it's time for some fresh leadership perspective, she said. Michael's done great foundational work, but we need someone who understands modern growth strategies for the next phase. The call went dead silent. Even Richard looked shocked. Patricia's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Are you suggesting a management change? I'm suggesting we consider all options for maximizing shareholder value, Ashley replied. Carlos started laughing. Not a happy laugh. The kind of laugh you hear right before someone gets destroyed. Ashley, he said, do you know what Section 4.7 of our Series A agreement says? I haven't reviewed every detail of the legal documents. It says any change in Michael's role requires approval from 75% of preferred shareholders. Right now, the preferred shareholders are me, Sarah, Patricia's fund, and your dad. Want to guess how that vote would go? Ashley looked at her father. Richard was staring at his hands. Dad? Ashley, Richard said quietly, maybe you should step out for the rest of this call. What? No. I'm part of the strategic team. Ashley. His voice was firm now. Please leave the call. She disconnected without another word. Patricia waited a beat, then spoke. Gentlemen, I think we need to discuss management structure and operational authority. Michael, are you prepared to take expanded leadership responsibility? Finally, time to fix this mess properly. Michael, Patricia continued after Ashley disconnected, we need operational clarity before moving forward with Series C. Are you prepared to assume expanded leadership authority? I'd been thinking about this moment since Wednesday's disaster. Yes, but with specific terms. I want executive chairman role with operational control over product, engineering, and strategic partnerships. Ashley can remain as VP, but she reports through me with clearly defined responsibilities. Richard, Dr. Wilson said, how do you feel about this structure? Richard looked like he'd aged another 5 years in the past hour. If it saves the Series C and protects the business, I support it. Carlos unmuted. I'll second that motion. Michael's earned operational control. Ashley can learn the business properly under his guidance, or she can find opportunities elsewhere. Sarah? Patricia asked. Agreed. Michael's track record speaks for itself. 300% revenue growth over 3 years, 98% customer retention, profitable operations. Ashley's suggestions would jeopardize all of that. The vote was unanimous. Section 4.7 of our Series A agreement was ironclad, but having board consensus made everything smoother. Excellent, Patricia said. Michael, I'll need updated org charts and reporting structures before we finalize Series C terms. Can you have those ready by Monday? Already drafted, I said. I'd been preparing for this conversation since Wednesday. The call ended at 4:15 p.m. My phone started buzzing immediately. Carlos texted, about time. Sarah called to congratulate me on handling that professionally. Dr. Wilson sent an email about proper governance finally prevailing. But the call that mattered came from Richard an hour later. Michael, can we meet this evening? I owe you an apology and an explanation. We met at Lazarus Brewing on East 6th Street. Richard was already there when I arrived, working on what looked like his second beer. Austin's tech scene is small enough that everyone knows everyone, and I could see a few other founders at nearby tables pretending not to watch our conversation. Ashley's moving back to California, Richard said without preamble. She's taking a business development role with a fintech startup in San Francisco. That's probably for the best, I said. Austin's tech community isn't that big. Word gets around. I know. Richard took a long pull from his beer. I screwed up, Michael. I let family dynamics cloud my business judgment. She's your daughter. I get it. No, you don't understand. Ashley's been struggling since she graduated. 3 jobs in 2 years, always clashing with management, always thinking she knows better than people with decades of experience. I thought giving her a real role at Apex would help her mature. I ordered a Shiner Bock and waited for him to continue. Her mother thinks I'm too hard on her, says I expect too much. So when Ashley came to me with ideas about strategic growth, I wanted to be supportive. Richard shook his head. I nearly destroyed your company trying to be a better father. The company's fine, Richard. Patricia confirmed the Series C is back on track. We'll close at 125 million instead of 120 million. She called it a governance premium for cleaning up our management structure. 125 million? Richard looked up for the first time. Even after the presentation disaster? Turns out investors like companies with clear leadership and founder protection clauses. Ashley accidentally demonstrated why those protections exist in the first place. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the Austin evening crowd filter into the brewery. Young tech workers, a few venture capitalists, the usual mix of ambitious people building the future. You know what's funny? Richard said eventually. Ashley was right about one thing. We do need to think bigger for the next phase. How so? 18 NIM ARR is impressive, but we could be at 50 nullers within 18 months with the right strategic moves. Not Ashley's Fortune 10 fantasy, but solid enterprise expansion. I smiled. Richard, that's exactly what my executive chairman strategy focuses on. Methodical growth with our existing customer base, strategic partnerships with complementary vendors, maybe one calculated acquisition to expand our AI capabilities. Show me Monday, already on your calendar. The Series C closed 6 weeks later at 125 million, led by Sequoia with participation from Austin Ventures, Carlos's family office, and 2 new institutional investors Patricia brought in. Our post-money valuation hit 400 million, making Apex one of Austin's newest unicorn track companies. Ashley Price lasted 4 months at the San Francisco fintech startup before pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities. Last I heard, she was doing consulting work for early-stage companies. Richard and I don't talk about her much, but he seems relieved that family and business are separate again. The funny thing is, Ashley taught me something valuable about leadership. It's not enough to be right about the business. You also have to be protected legally. Those founder protection clauses I negotiated 8 years ago saved my company and my career. These days, when other Austin founders ask me about board management and family business dynamics, I tell them the same thing Carlos told me after our Series A signing. Protect yourself legally, build relationships carefully, and never assume good intentions override bad judgment. Ashley Price learned that lesson the hard way. I just wish it hadn't taken 125 Ausbellers in the Austin tech community watching to teach it to her. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's watching someone self-destruct while you're protected by documents they never bothered to read.